chaos and panic spread further and further like a domino effect.
Once the financial sector starts collapsing, then obviously it doesn't lend to the productive sectors. Obviously those sectors get affected.
Because they're not sure, they have lost confidence. And it's a loss of confidence which is very, very dangerous.
And so there is a chain effect, there is a domino effect of companies failing.
The employees are now jobless, so their demand for goods and services will decline.
And when this happens on a large scale, when employees are laid off, they lose their income, they lose their purchasing power, they are no longer going into the stores to buy, consumer demand drops. Because consumer demand drops, import drops, especially for a country which has a large trader in the world market in terms of export and import. When imports drop, the countries from which they are importing, their exports drop correspondingly.
And that is what the economic recession is all about.
You throw a stone into a pool of water and you can see rings developing, and this is how the crisis develops.
It starts from one set of lenders, and it has spilled over to almost all financial institutions across the geographical boundaries.
So the whole of Europe is under the spell. United States, Canada is already, North America is already suffering from this, and now this is coming down towards the economies which were the emerging economies. That's why in the G20 summit, the emerging economies were also feeling the heat. So India, China, Brazil, Russia, they are also feeling the heat because of this. So nobody knows that how many more countries will be sucked into the crisis.
So it is both the intensity, the spread, as well as the coverage of the people who are affected, which has made this as one of the worst crises in the history of humankind since the Great Depression.
You never give me your money. You only give me your funny paper. And in the middle of negotiations, you break down.
Now I had no option left except declaring bankruptcy. So I went to the bank and finally did that. The bank said, if you die, we die as well, because we have invested a lot on you.
Yes.
And then my wonderful banker friend came up with another brilliant solution. The idea was a government bailout. The case was taken up to the government, which realized that it was a complex situation. They thought if they don't provide the money to bail out, then Bubbloo Food Center, its bank, my suppliers, their banks, the investors in the bond market, everyone would be affected. There would even be a decrease in the government tax revenues. And if the tax revenues decrease, the government would also not be able to pay salaries to their own employees. And this will cause a nationwide unrest. All courtesy Bubbloo Biryani. So the government decided in favor of bailout so that it could revive business activity. They gave the money to the bank so that the bank could pay it to me.
It was always felt the market will correct itself. It should have been allowed to correct itself if the neoliberal philosophy had prevailed, but the United States and the UK had to take a page out of socialism to save their economies.
If you bail out every student which is failing in a class, then what good example will you give to the students who are passing with flying colors?
When you are bailing out a large company, you're not doing it out of mercy, you're not doing it out of charity, you're doing it out of necessity.
They want economic activity to revive. How do you revive economic activity?
The example that they have set in is that no problem, if you mess up things, we have tons of money, we have a printing press, we'll print the money, we'll give it to you without any gold backing on this, and we'll bail you out.
The US alone is pumping in $800 billion as a stimulus package. Now they can't raise it without borrowing it from someplace, either domestically or from outside. When you have higher debt, who pays? It is the taxpayer who has to pay.
So the taxpayer think that we are not responsible for this company failing. The company failed because these managers were bad managers, they were inefficient, they were incompetent.
The government is saying if we don't bail them out, then the entire economic system of producing goods and services is going to collapse. So all of us, not only 8% or 10% people will be unemployed, but 50% people will be unemployed.
What sort of an economic system is this where all the profits are privatized and all the losses are nationalized?
If you follow the standard capitalist formula, when a company is making money, it's its own money. But when it is losing money, it's supposed to lose its own money. You don't then support the company with taxpayer money.
Governments provided these bailouts to the banks. Now, the banks had extremely infected balance sheets. So now the banks decided, rather than lending money out to the small producer, they decided to clean up their balance sheets.
And this was done to me as well. Instead of the bailout benefits being transferred to me, they remained with the bank. I think all the bankers in the world are like that.